We are live. Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of The Magic Box. Smooth sailing. I love weeks like this. We have the full Dragon's Maze spoiler, so it's going to get all of our attention this week. We've highlighted a decent number of cards and already learned a few valuable lessons about what cards actually do in the set after reading them a second time.
Yeah, that's always a key part for spoilers, is especially when stuff gets leaked ahead of time, like not even like official channel spoilers. Really, we gotta make sure that the wording on those cards is accurate, because things occasionally get left out in translation or lost in the process of secreting away this information from wizards or something.
Let's be real, we're lazy, and we read things once through very quickly. I definitely made an error on one of the cards I read once and was like, oh, I know exactly what that does, I need to do it again. Before we get started today, though, I would like to stop and acknowledge Quentin Hoover and his passing this last weekend. One of the most influential Magic artists on my play. I don't know about you, Eck.
I mean, I like his art.
We still says we're offline. Is there a technical issue that you need to fix?
I think we're online.
You think we're on technical
Yeah,
issue
we're-
that you need to fix?
I
Okay.
think we're online.
Remember you had that cache
Yeah.
issue from whoever ago? You think that's what's going on?
No, we're online. So
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
I don't know why it doesn't say it, but
Okay, well, thank you people in the chat for letting us know that you exist. We're having a hard time seeing you right now, but we are seeing things coming through. But to not belay my moment here for Quentin, he's probably still my favorite Magic artist today. If you go to my my Twitter page, you can tell that for sure. Definitely caught my attention early in Magic art when it was really rich. There's some great stories there. Who was probably your favorite artist when you started playing Magic, Eck?
I always liked Arcade Post.
You're even like a post-Morphling player. Like, you didn't start until like 2001, 2002.
I mean, I played for fun, like in the schoolyard or whatever, since like Revised, but like not anything seriously, like not really understanding anything beyond like the basic rules of Magic until like Judgment, I would say.
Which would almost say that the art probably had more of an impact on players that don't know the rules, like myself. I mean,
Right.
In the around Revised era of Magic, when I think even Wizards itself was like, hey, pick up the player's handbook, that'll help you learn the rules. There were a lot of other factors that really contributed to how you engaged with the game.
I think really what the art did, especially when I first started playing, was it was the easiest way to evaluate cards. You know what I mean?
The sweeter the art, the more likely you were to play it.
Well, it was just like, oh, I don't really know what this does, but it's a giant worm or whatever. Look at this huge fireball. Oh my god, like, we gotta play that. So, like, that was definitely, like, you know, if it didn't pass the art test, like, it often did not make it into, like, whatever 200 card pile I was playing.
I think, that's actually much more of a subliminal feeling for me. I definitely remember, especially in the schoolyard setting, trying to engage classmates or people I knew about Magic. You'd want to showcase the most exciting artwork. You wouldn't want
that
to...
was always my play too. Was like, oh, you should play Magic. Check out all these sweet cards. Like, look at all this art.
You were never like, this game is amazing. Here's planes.
Right.
See? Planes.
Yeah. It was always like, you know, Unholy Strength with the pentagram in the back is all metal and like
Your tiny Eck was still very metal.
Very metal.
Yes,
yeah.
I'm sure. So there you have it. Quentin, it seems like we can't cut any of your cards from Cube anymore, especially the signed ones. We'll be missed.
Yeah.
So, thank you again. I'm still going to try to get Vestman Doppelganger back into the Cube. I don't know if people are going to let me do that, but that might be... We might have to have an honorary season of the Doppelganger.
Maybe we
or
just
something.
Like, we should just sort cubes so that there are a certain number of nostalgia cards, and if you want to add another one, you have to take a nostalgia card out.
I feel like I did that, though. I cut the Cougar recently.
I know.
I think I'm owed one. I feel like I'm owed one.
The Cougar is definitely... some people are sad to see it go. Although the Cougar was, like, one of the most acceptable of the... Like, it was still a
do you
two-do
mean a non-goblin goblin chariot was a fine Magic card?
It was, like, not good, but it wasn't, like, completely horrible.
Same thing with Vestman Doppelganger.
That's certainly
It's
true.
cloned for an extra blue that could just upgrade if it feels like it.
Yeah. Fine.
I don't know. I mean, I some of my favorite stories involved old vintage sideboards where I would just jam it in there.
Just because you didn't have 15 cards you wanted to
I'm
bring
pretty
in
sure
anyway.
at that Worlds tournament in 2004, it was a non-proxy vintage event with like 180 people. I had a 13 card 2 Vesivan Doppelganger sideboard.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's pretty sweet.
I was better than pretty sweet. Again, that's kind of like a nod. If I played a lot of sanctioned vintage right now, I would try to make that happen.
Right.
But not so much.
Alright, so do we want to go into our packs here?
Yeah.
Our usual thing?
Be lively, chat, because it's hard to know who's here right now because of our bad Twitch situation. But
Yeah, I don't know what's up with that.
I don't know either. There's
But,
a lot of moving pieces.
Yeah.
We'll
a lot
just-
of balls in the air with this program.
We'll just jump right into the show today, though. Let's start with pick one, pack one for the audience, especially the podcast audience who
Everybody's
doesn't know
favorite thing.
any of these delays.
No. Alright, so in today's pack, we have Engineered Explosives, Gale Powder Mage, Craterhoof Behemoth, Vivid Crag, Savannah Lions, Braids Cabal Minion, Rolling Earthquake, Sword of Light and Shadow, Land Tax, Trinket Mage, Fauna Shaman, Elish Norn Grand Cenobite, Chandra Nalar, Carnophage, and Factor Fiction.
This is pretty even keel.
It's funny, like, normally in packs like this, where the power level is pretty, like, flattened out, I would just kind of default to taking that sword.
Okay.
But Light and Shadow is one of the worst of the swords, possibly, other than maybe War and Peace.
If you had to rank the swords, it's probably Fire Ice, Feast and Famine, Light and Shadow, War and Peace.
Yeah.
But that's like, I don't know, you're really splitting hairs being like, it's the worst of these amazing equipment that there's only 4 of.
I mean, I'm never super stoked about Light and Shadow, whereas...
Haha, Sam. Gale Powder Mage is currently a proxy for nothing. It stands alone, trying to do stuff.
It's
not
done
terrible.
a little bit.
Yeah, it's an EOT thing, so you can, like, flash out a good card, and then Jockle Hops, maybe. I mean,
Blink their blockers.
Yeah, it's in theory it does a lot of different things, and it's also a Phantom Monster, which...
In practice, it has not done a ton.
No, it's been a 3/3. It's been a Phantom Monster. That's what it has. In practice, it's been Phantom Monster.
Same thing with, not to get distracted, but Firemade Avenger has kind of felt that way too.
That one's a little harder to cast. I don't think we've seen it as often.
Yeah.
But
Anyway,
back to the
this
pack at hand.
I like taking Factor Fiction here. There's another blue card in the pack in Trinket Mage, but that's not really going to be a huge blue signal for anybody. Factor Fiction is splashable. Any deck where I have the ability to play it, I'm probably going to. It's certainly one of the most powerful cards in the pack, probably up there with, Elish Norn on the pricey side, or Land Tax maybe.
Without a doubt, I can say Factor Fiction is the safest card to take out of this pack because it's only 1 blue to cast. No matter what color combination you end in, if you don't end in a color combination with a lot of card draw, this is going to kind of get you back, assuming you can splash it. In blue decks, it's always good. I mean, Factor Fiction kind of defined blue in the early 2000s, and it has also other opportunities to kind of open up maybe a little Reanimator action.
Yeah.
Not necessarily for sure. It's pretty much just like a draw 2 great cards, or draw 3 cards, or if your opponents are real bad, it gets even better.
I mean, yeah, I always enjoy skill tester cards like that. And I mean, Factor Fiction is just really, really good. I'm going to play it in most decks. There's...
Factor Fiction is safe.
Yeah.
I think if you wanted to be less safe, I'd probably still taking the Rolling Earthquake. That's because I really like that card on power level. It's funny, the Earthquakes in red, Slag Storm, Actual Earthquake, Rolling Earthquake, they are a bit counterproductive for the standard red strategy in the we're going to play a bunch of small guys and beat your face down. Oh, why would I kill all my guys? So I think by taking Rolling Earthquake, you might be just kind of touching on red in a deck to play this sweeper. Also, at this point in Cube, I think all of the horsemanship guys have kind of left.
Yeah,
So this
there's
is
no
like
horsemanship.
actual destroy everything. It could also be a finisher, etc., etc.
Someone in the chat points out, in terms of safe picks, isn't Sword the safest pick because it's an artifact?
I don't know. I don't think when I take Sword, I'm gonna play a creature deck, and I'm gonna play a creature deck where I'm gonna want to curve with Sword, and I think that yes, Norbert is a huge fan of Thieving Magpie.
Yeah.
Lungju or whatever that guy's name, and he's gone.
The thing about Sword is...
So I would take Fact. I think Fact is safer than Sword, is actually what I'm saying.
I mean, yes, Fact or Fiction is a colored spell, so you're going to have to play some amount of blue mana to play it, whereas you're not going to have to do that with Sword of Light and Shadow. But I think the minimum amount of investment it takes to get you to play Fact or Fiction in most decks is worth the jump in power level over Sword of Light and Shadow.
I am on board with this.
So,
yes. So I think it's Fact or Quake. Or if you're the always draft Zoo all the time player, probably Sword of Light and Shadow.
I mean, there's, again, one of the nice things about Cube is, like, you can look at almost any pack, and if you have the desire to play a certain deck, you can definitely get there. So, like, maybe you want to play, like, a sweet green value creatures deck. You could take Fauna Shaman. Or maybe...
I'm surprised no one in the chat wanted to go deep, take Trinket Mage, and get Engineer Explosives back. I think that means that 10 times out of 10, you're taking Fact or Fiction over Trinket Mage.
Yeah. I mean, I like Trinket Mage. I'm always a big fan of creatures like that, and there are plenty of good targets to get for it in Cube, and it really, helps you justify playing some of the more narrow cards, especially in your main deck, that, you would want access to, but sometimes it's hard to justify.
Zurin Orb? I mean, most of the 1 mana or less artifacts should have a purpose.
Well, right, but I'm saying, like, being able to tutor for them, I think, gives me at least a bit more of a justification to be running the main deck. Like, stuff like the graveyard removal, like Spellbomber, Relic of Progenitus, like, if I could tutor for them, like, oh, it's slightly better, like...
Yes, agreed. So here, I think we're in agreement. It is a Fact or Fiction-y kind of day.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with Fact or Fiction.
Yeah. I mean, oftentimes good things happen with Fact or Fiction, especially depending on who you're playing against.
Yeah.
There's those moments sometimes you're like, really? This is how you split it? I mean, I'm not going to take that card in pretty much anything.
I mean, that's one of my favorites in Fact or Fictioning in like the infinite mana, like off the top format. Where it's like reveal 5 and then there's always like one X spell. And you're like, oh, okay, great.
Yeah, that's real. Mindslaver is probably going to be leaving our cube soon, so you can't do the classic Slave You
Fact or Fiction 5-0 split.
Yeah, that has happened before.
That is quite the 14 mana play.
Yeah, well, that one is usually a 6 mana, 4 mana. Yeah.
All right, so we've got a couple other.
The way more excitings. We have some scenarios today, obviously, because who doesn't love those?
So let's get started. The first one of these.
What do we have today? Ooh, I like this. Go Eck.
I do like this one too. So far, you have drafted an Elspeth Tyrell, Balance, Lightning Bolt, Gideon Champion of Justice.
All right. Got some
Planeswalkers. Cards. You get past a pack with Orin Viper, Evolving Wilds, Diabolic Servitude, Molten Rain, Cloistered Youth, Izzet Keyrune, Calcite Snapper, Gifts Ungiven, Shrapnel Blast, Slaughterhorn, and Debtor's Knell. What do you take?
I'm probably taking the Keyrune, or I might just take the Evolving Wilds.
I kind of want Wilds, yeah.
I look at it like I have...
I like this deck already.
I want to play a balanced deck.
Yeah.
I want to play a deck that abuses balance the most. Maybe that means I really want Gifts Ungiven, but at the same time, I really want Artifact mana, because artifacts aren't affected by balance. It also gets the red that we already have off the Lightning Bolt, so depending on what direction we go with white and... I like Izzet Keyrune. Now, I'm more inclined to take Izzet Keyrune because I have one of the premier 1-mana removal spells in my pool already, so I'm not going to be taking a bunch of the expensive mana rocks into expensive planeswalkers into hopefully having sweeping effects. I'll have a keen eye out for any kind of Incinerates or Journey to Nowheres or things along the lines I can pick up to kind of work with my strategy.
Well, kind of on the flip side of that, if we want to be playing a balanced deck, which clearly with 2 planeswalkers in balance, that's kind of where we're angling.
Uh-huh.
We're going to be prioritizing artifact mana. We're going to be prioritizing, permanents that are not going to get affected by balance.
Right.
That Shrapnel Blast gets a lot better in this deck.
Sure, and we can definitely try to pick it up when it wheels. I think of the 3 cards that are going to come back out of here, it's going to be like Cloistered Youth, Shrapnel Blast, and either Diabolic Servitude, Gifts Ungiven, or Debtor's Knell, depending on what people are taking.
I mean, I think Evolving Wilds is probably a fine pick. I mean, I don't think there's really anything that wrong with it.
No, it's better than fine. And to me, it's like clearly in the top 2 cards. I'm taking Izakirun or Evolving Wilds out of here 9 times out of 10. And that 1 time out of 10 where I'm going to take Molten Rain, I'm going to be feeling quite saucy, and I'm going to be trying to draft
bold maneuver.
Very Boros-y right out of the gate. So I have no problem with Evolving Wilds. It's one of those things where it's like, if you take Evolving Wilds, Kirun has a slim chance of coming back because, again, it's the 3-mana rock, which people don't want as often. And, it's a 2-color kind of thing. Again, it's just a mana rock. So, yeah, taking Evolving Wilds is perfectly fine. Taking Kirun... It's Kirun or Evolving Wilds, really. And I'm probably taking Kirun just because I want to get as many of those as possible. But I also like Evolving Wilds because it's never bad. And, we just have a Lightning Bolt. Who knows, next we're going to get past Demonic Tutor or something. And
the Abyss or something.
Yeah, that's more likely. Not Demonic Tutor. Maybe Vampiric Tutor. Who knows?
I mean, yeah. I think you're always going to play Wilds. I mean, you probably always play Izakirun as well, but I think I like taking Wilds.
I mean, now when you open up that Fact or Fiction, pick 16... it's just as good if you had the Evolving Wilds or the Izakirun. Who am I kidding?
Yeah, I know.
Oh yeah, if that Gifts Ungiven came back, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
You take Wilds, I take Kirun. I like them both.
Yeah. Okay, so that is our first scenario. Now let's go into our second one.
Yes. All right, what do we have this time, Eck?
I like this one a lot. You have 4 cards once again. We need to have scenarios that have different amounts of cards in them.
Is there such a pain in the butt? Like, I want to do like a here are your first 15, and here's what you open pack 2, and how that changes your evaluation.
That'd be
but you're going to be like sitting here reading a novel. You're going to like take a piss break and come back.
Anyway, so you've got Polluted Delta, Increasing Confusion, Scrubland, and Flooded Strand. The pack is Inferno Titan, Living Death, Exalted Angel, Llanowar Elves, Overrule, Clone, Gideon's Lawkeeper, Ivory Tower, Wheel of Fortune, Fire Ice, and Who, What, When, Where, Why.
Alright, so it looks like we just took some lands and one of Blue's most powerful win conditions in the form of Increasing Confusion. Now that we have access to those cards, sure, we have Esper colors in terms of our mana fixing currently, but we're still very early in the draft. I mean, we could play some kind of 5-color blue control deck. We could play some kind of 5-color everything deck. We could just play a blue control deck.
I mean, I definitely like the fact that, the way our mana is even if we never got another non-basic land in this draft, our mana is already pretty sweet for, at the very least, blue with a touch of white or black or even potentially both.
Mm-hmm.
So that being said, I think if we took Overrule here, we would very likely play it. I think
I want to go slightly bigger than that card, but I understand why you're pointing it out.
Yeah, I think that of the creatures, Clone or Exalted Angel, both would likely make this deck, but at the same time, I'm not really thrilled because that's not usually where I want to be in a base blue deck. You could go super crazy deep with Living End.
You mean Living Death?
Living Death. Increasing Confusion yourself.
Yeah, I don't think that's that bad. Here's the thing about Living Death. This card is so good that on turn 5, it's actually just Wrath of God.
Yeah.
So you can just play it if your opponent's played some dudes, and then...
provided you could stand the heat,
Yeah. I mean, you're obviously going to wield that Ivory Tower.
Obviously.
I like Living Death here. I just think that I don't think I want to commit to it so much because I could play a blue control deck. And, like, the doors are still really wide open. I think if I take Living Death, all of a sudden I want to move in a different direction. It's not completely unrelated to Increasing Confusion. I just feel like I'm starting from pick 5 to draft a deck, and I already have all these sweet blue fixing options.
Yeah. I think that, you could even make an argument on just pure flexibility for Who, What, When, Where, Why.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. When I look at Who, What, Where, When, Why in blue decks, I'm looking at Remove Soul for one more that has all these like feels like endless options.
Yeah.
In the long run. And a card like that is great to me. It's like, okay, well, in playing blue decks, I'm probably going to want to play Remove Soul. And, you know, just against, like, you, I think last week or a few weeks ago in Cube Draft, in Cube League, I boarded it. I was playing a blue deck. I boarded it in against you just because of the gain life part.
Yeah.
Which was very relevant to the match.
Yeah, like, 7 or 8 times out of 10, it's going to be...
Remove Soul.
Remove Soul.
Which is fine.
But if you have the other sources of mana, like, occasionally...
Yeah, you might need to destroy a troublesome land. You may need to destroy an artifact if you have access to that. And you might really need to gain life.
Right.
And that, if it was just a blue-white split card, one out of your entire 3 matches, it's a Stone Rain, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a number of ways you could definitely go. I would probably, if I was drafting this deck, I would probably take Overrule. Exalted Angel is fine, but I feel like I can do better. And I don't
Poor
know.
Exalted Angel.
She's
so versatile.
Very good, but I just, I think I don't necessarily want to take... I don't know how much white I'm going to have.
All right.
I know I'm taking Overrule when talking about I don't know how much white I'm going to have, but,
If I'm taking a creature, I'm taking Exalted Angel.
Yes.
If I'm taking a spell, I'm taking Who, What, Where, When, Why over Fire and Ice. I really think the Fire and Ice is actually like the safest pick in this whole pack because it's literally just Enervate or whatever, tap a guy, draw. I think that's I didn't read 5 Ws. I think that's easily the spell. Thank you, Sam. So yes, I'm taking Who, What, Where, Where, Why out of this pack if I'm taking a spell, and I think I'm taking the spell over the creature in this scenario.
Yeah.
Because isn't... I mean, I don't know, like... I think... I mean, you're saying Overrule, which is kind of like those 2 cards kind of jammed together almost.
Yeah. They still have less flexibility. I mean...
Who's they?
Overrule just has less flexibility, obviously, than Who, What, When, Where, Why.
Not really. If your opponent plays a Planeswalker, holding Who, What, Where, When, Why doesn't do anything.
Pretty bad, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I like Who, What, When, Where, Why. I like Overrule. I think either one is fine. I would probably try and take Overrule and try and keep focus on colors a little more.
Just make sure you pick up a few cards that kill Gaddock Teeg.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's that pick.
Cross your fingers looking for Intuition.
Anything that produces, like, any artifact mana, big artifact mana gets better with all your X spells.
Yeah, it's funny, when I first was putting that pack together, I think I randomed onto Dromar's Charm, and I was like, get out of here. That one seems too obvious.
Too easy.
Now there's an excellent 3-color card.
Oh, yeah.
So, talking about 3-color cards, what a perfect and ass-backwards segue into today's main topic, which I don't think anything's keeping us from. We don't have a You Make the Card update, do we?
No.
I'm butchering this. It's Dragon's Maze week, officially. The official fully. Now, leading up to this, we kind of mentioned it as the spoilers came out. We talked about cards as they were seen. But now, it's really kind of that time to devote to breaking down the whole set. So I put together a list of things that are complete maybes. Like, any card I would consider for a Rares cube, or power or unpowered cube.
Yeah.
I don't want to put the caveat being like, oh, this is excellent for your Pauper cube, or this card, there's no way it'll make your Pauper cube, because I don't know enough about that to make these kind of comments. Look,
yeah,
I think Adam Staborski, go ask him. He knows.
I think the majority of the cards on this list, you could very reasonably put into any cube list, and they would probably be fine. Obviously, balance and whatnot.
Oh, that's the list. So that is actually the first card we're talking about. All right, yeah. Sweet. So we get to start with my greatest mistake.
Yeah. So this is what we were alluding to earlier in the show. So Sign of Vitu-Ghazi, at first glance, it looks sweet, especially if you don't notice if you cast it from your hand.
Which obviously I didn't, because why would that be on there? I don't understand. Yeah, WTF.
Yeah, it's pretty...
I looked at this card and I was like, hey, Geist Honored Monk is very good. You can, cheat it with Revel Arc. There's, other ways to kind of make it do cool stuff. At the end of the day, it's a 5-drop that creates 2 flyers. This card's the same way. It kind of has this extra kind of failsafe almost of being like a 4/4 just on its own. I was kind of talking myself into it, and I was pretty excited about it. And it wasn't until today that Eck pointed out to me that because it has Populate on it, it does not work the way we want it to work.
Right. I mean, as exciting as it would be to just go infinite with that card.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think it's... I mean, if it worked the way I want it to work, it wouldn't be a worse Cloud Guard Angel or a worse Geist Honored Monk. Because it has to be that way, it is so bad. You can't Aether Violet even, like... You can't do the seemingly fair cube-style ways of putting it into play.
Right. You just get... You know, if you play it from your hand, you get some birds. If not, you get a 4/4. You get Dirkwood Boars. So, this one kind of is a bit of a miss on rules. This one, on the other hand, not a miss at all. Where is it? There it is.
I guess it's important to point out before we start, we've already started, that Dragon's Maze has very few monocolored cards,
right.
Just the way the whole set breaks down. So normally in areas where we'd have a lot more to talk about, not so much with this set. No, I don't even think we have one card of every color that's worth talking about. Oh, I guess we do. Okay, we got lucky in that regard that there are potentials. There's nominatable cards in every color.
So Aetherling, awesome. This card is boss.
You're so sure.
It's
so expensive.
That is a clock, sir.
It doesn't get double strike, does it?
No, but it does get 8 power.
Okay. Well, it's funny. I think I first thought of like Joval's Avenger when I thought of this card. Does that make any sense?
A little bit.
Yeah. Either way, I like how it's a 4/5. Mm-hmm. Now I'm going to pose this. I'm pretty sure I'd be willing to make a wager that an M14 Flame Slash will be coming back to the base set.
That's certainly reasonable.
And it would have been quite a bust if this guy was just a 4/4 in a world where that's a thing.
Right,
I mean, granted, that's a standard world where it's much more standard applicable. But for us, Fire Blast, Flame Javelin, Burst Lightnings, having it be a 4/5 matter. Illustrator Wildfire, which could be really relevant.
I mean, I like having. I like this guy. He's a great clock. Unblockable 8 power if you want it. Dodges everything from your own wraths to their spot removal. You can even play. He can play like vigilance defense by attacking and then sliding him and getting him back untapped. If you need to do that, this guy is awesome. Like, I think he's really, really good, and I think that he'll be even though he's a bit on the pricey side, I think that he will be a slam dunk in Cube.
I don't think he's a slam dunk. I think that he wedged his way into our cube-shaped heart, mostly because he's going to end up replacing a card that I think functions very similar to how this card will function. Which you got to remember, this is not a 6-drop in my mind. To me, this is a 7 or 8-drop, and because of that, it has to be treated differently in how you put together in your cube. When CNC matters, don't look at Aetherling as like 6. I'm not casting this card the same time I'm casting.
But you can.
Sinks of Jor Isle. Yeah.
If you have to, you can.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Like,
if you're on the verge of,
he's going to be 7 because you want to be able to protect him. I get that. But if push comes to shove and you need a guy right now, you can still drop him on 6 and cross your fingers.
Yeah. I mean, who knows how good life will be if that's the case, but
I think it'll be very good. Obviously, time will tell, but
so it connects to what it's going to replace. And initially, I wasn't going to put this card in the cube for our cube because as we go through, I guess we can say which of these we will and which we won't. Scion is currently on the include list, but it will need to be removed. This guy wasn't initially on the change list, but he is because he functions very similarly to Aeon Chronicler, in my view, where you're going to spend on Aeon Chronicler for a lot of mana. You hope to do something cool like Wildfire and then have that guy into the battlefield, or better yet, Upheaval and have this guy into the battlefield. So with Aetherling, you can, if you end up in a board stall or something, you can slide him out, or you might be, who knows, you might be losing. Cast Upheaval, and then you don't need to worry about recasting him. He comes back by himself, and he's pretty much going to rule the world at that point, which I liked a lot. I think that was kind of what ended up selling it to me. I mean, it's not a very good bribery target. It's not, which is similar to Aeon Chronicle, I guess. And so at the end of the day, that was where the line was drawn. It was like, okay, let's make that change.
All right. Next on the list, another card I think will be very good.
I think this is one of the most auto-includees of all the auto-includees.
Yeah.
If he hadn't been a zombie, maybe not.
You have to pause for 1 second.
Yeah. Blood Scrivener, we talked about it last week. The internet's all ablaze about it right now. It's already selling out fervorously all over the internet. Yeah.
It's just very good. You know,
he's a zombie. Hello, grave crawlers.
Having aggressive sources of card draw is exactly what you want to be, what you want to have in a black kind of environment. It being a zombie is just gravy. 2 power. Had it been like a 1/1 for 2, then
that would have hurt a little bit.
It would have hurt.
Obviously, in the NBA strategies, you want these guys to attack, and we spend all this time with our vampire lacerators and such to make that environment a real thing. And then to have this guy come back as a 1/1 for 2 or 3 or something would have hurt a lot. So I think it's costed pretty perfectly. And again, it's only a single black on the color side too, so it's not an NBA only kind of card.
Right,
you can play it in
decks.
all these black X aggressive decks.
Well,
mostly black red, maybe black green, in all likelihood. But hey, it's cute. Anything could happen.
Yeah. Next up, I like this guy. He's a little weird, but I kind of like him.
Pyrewild Shaman. 1 red, 2 colorless for a 3/1. I guess for people listening to this after the fact, we might want to give a little bit more information about what cards we're talking about as far as their stats and what they do. So this guy's real simple. He blood rushes for a red and 1. Target attacking creature gets +3/+1 obs. And then whenever one or more creatures you control deals combat damage to a player, if it's in your graveyard, you can pay 3 colorless, and if you can do it, you return it to your hand.
So he kind of reminds me of like a weird blood rushy Hammer Bogarden kind of effect.
Yeah, and Hammer Bogarden is too slow for Cube these days.
It's very slow.
It's very sorcery-esque as well. It's not that great.
I like this guy, as both a repeatable pump spell. He's fine, but a hard to deal with guy in red.
Yeah, I think
also good.
It's really interesting how this ended up being. I feel like what is a relevant card. 3 drops are already kind of at a premium for red. 3 power 3 drops are really great. This guy even blocks, which is kind of cool. I very much expect this card to not block, especially if it was black.
Yeah.
But here, you end up with all these interesting scenarios where red can kind of get card advantage back with this card, and also have it have impact since it's going to give 3 power to something. It's cool. You can block with it. You're like in a race situation. You can block with it. You can attack your opponent. You can deal damage to them, get them back. You can then cast it to be on D again. You can.
I just like cards like this because so often they're like, this guy is fine on his own, and him being fine on his own is really kind of what sells me on him being in the cube.
Mm-hmm.
Because if all else fails, he's a 3 power guy for 3, and you can get him back and have like this recursive creature. He's not like a crummy guy when the plan does not go correctly. You know what I mean?
I love games of Magic where all of a sudden you're hitting with this vanilla 3/1 a few times, and your opponent's trying to find answers. And it's kind of in a way you're playing much more traditional limited Magic, which Cube, you're always looking to try to kind of bridge that gap and kind of walk that line and do both things, where you can have super powerful, over-the-top, tooth and nail, Oath the Druids, Braids, get you counter upheaval games, but you could also have guys trading combat, Shaman attack, where's my stop? The Wall of Omens, okay, new game, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So here's another card. This is actually one that we got some questions on Twitter about. Should I bring it up? Renegade Crosses, the 32 evolve for 3, that when it evolves, you evolve everything else, basically.
It's similar to Red, with the needing 3 drops that you want to do something.
Right.
He is a little bit more of a loner. He doesn't have as many positive interactions with other cards. He doesn't have a great form of evasion. Like if this card had trample.
That being said, if you've designed your cube, or you have a +1/+1 counter element that's more prevalent. I mean, we don't really have it that much, except in cards that are individually good. So if you have a bit more of that theme kind of going with your build, he becomes much better. I think really what this is, the discussion on this card was born from, is that Green's 3 drops are kind of, you either have guys like Troll Aesthetic or value guys like Yavimay Elder, and if you want Green to be more aggressive, there's not a ton of awesome 3 drops.
That's kind of Green's new angle. I think by adding all the mana creatures over the last year or two, what we're trying to do with Green is you're going to want to go from 1 to 4 to 5 to 6 as fast as possible, and that's where your power is. It's not... are we just talking about Cube? Most likely, yes. This is a Cube podcast and channel, but who knows? We could talk about Magic in general or any other topics that interest you.
Sure.
What happened on Raw this week? I don't know.
It was sweet.
Was it?
Undertaker wrestling.
Oh, damn it!
I know.
This
Anyway,
guy sucks.
We're getting ahead of ourselves.
All right, so with this guy, hey, it's a fine card. I mean, you know, if your cube is a little less into all of those 1 mana bird type things, or elf type things, maybe this card works better for your cube. For us, we're moving away from that so that the green creatures have a little bit more of the ramp. You know, you can just ramp into cards like Deadbridge Goliath. I think that that's really a great example of where green's aggressive side can come, strictly aggressive side, comes from these days.
So, that's Renegade Cross.
There's that guy, yeah. Well, another green card.
Yeah. I actually like this guy. Because
Tell me more, Eck.
I mean, I'm a fan of... I've been saying for a while I want green to be more tricky. And
This constitutes tricky?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's got a lot of sweet abilities on it. I mean, he's not like a huge win condition or anything.
I had no
like,
idea. I had no idea Reach was a tricky or a sweet ability.
Dude, you're gonna get people so much with this card in your days.
What are you gonna eat a Bitter Blossom token?
Yeah, get him.
So Skylasher is who we're
Block
looking at.
Sphinx of Isle. Oh snap!
Oh, it does block Sphinx of Isle. Mind status blown.
Like
Skylasher,
I like this guy.
I don't know. It's kind of too narrow for me.
I don't know. I want to try him out. I think he's cool.
You want to try out Ashcoat Bears on Crack that doesn't actually do anything?
Dude, I would much rather play this than Wild Mongrel.
Wow. I mean, we could just make that change. That would be weird.
That would be weird.
Currently, Skylasher not making it.
But
and I gotta tell you, you're not making an extremely compelling argument yet.
He's sweet.
Don't get me wrong.
The end.
Block Sphinx of Jor Isle is like, oh, that's
a
actually surprising.
blowout.
Sure. If that's their only win condition.
Yeah.
The blue deck is just stacked full of, getcha cards. They don't have Vidalcan Shackles, obviously, and then you just jam this guy to not die.
They, click you, you're like, Skylasher you? Oh, nice click, bro.
Flash Bear that can't be countered. I'll keep that in the back of my mind. I mean, there was a while there where I felt like... We even cut Great Sable Stag.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, doesn't block...
Doesn't have Flash. You know, doesn't have Reach, also.
It also is a literal grizzly bear.
Yeah.
Do you understand that anytime your opponent is not playing blue flyers, this card is pretty bad?
Guys stay trapped, as the chat points out. Get you.
Is that do you think that was a standard related impact decision for this card? I don't think so, but that's interesting to think about.
Yeah. Like the why certain cards get printed.
As they do. And this card...
The fact that this set has 17 different Sphinx's Revelation Hazards.
Which is sweet.
It's just funny.
So, in the greater history of Magic, a card like Scragnoth from Tempest was printed as kind of a direct correlation to the blue decks, the counterspell decks of the era being too good.
Yeah.
Now I look at this card, and I think that the motivation would have to be similar.
It gets Delver.
Oh, it does get Delver.
Which is probably what they were thinking.
So this we're looking to be, legacy playable?
I don't know.
It's not very good against Rug Delver.
No.
You just turned Fire Ice back on again.
Yeah, I know.
Ooh, that's saucy.
Yeah.
I don't think this card is for us. I think it's a cool card. I even like the artwork.
I think that...
Take that, Bird Drake thing, through the neck.
Right. Alright, next up on the list.
Now we're already into gold. Advent of the Worm we've talked about a lot. I still really like this card. It tells you how good Celestia is coming out of Dragon's Maze for us in Cube, that this is not going to make a cut.
It's just stacked. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Green White is already so deep, and then it got, 4 playable cards?
At least. I mean, I feel like you could go so many different ways and so deep on Celestia, and maybe one day this guy will make it into the Cube, but just not today, so... We've talked about it a lot in the show in the past. I think that's kind of the only reason that I want to talk more about Advent of the Worm here. I don't fault anybody for putting it in their Cube. It's an excellent card.
Yeah, I think it's totally sweet. Yeah, I think that eventually I think it will make it into Green White.
cube ends up being 1,200 cards, it will, for sure.
Next up, Beck and Call.
Our first Dragon's Maze preview card of all. One that we didn't stop and talk about too much. I feel like it's much more constructed implications than for us. I think that both sides of it could be fine in cube and limited in general. 8 mana in a Bant deck for this draw 4 thing is like it could come up. I mean, like again, it's still a limited format, so things can happen. As far as we're concerned, I don't think there's a lot of like combo elements with the Beck side. I mean, obviously, it would be super sweet to like cast Beck,
Lingering Souls,
like Vile in Deranged Hermit.
Yeah,
cast some cool stuff. Like there, we could come up with scenarios where it'd be very good, but I think that's true of many cards.
I think it's going to see plenty of play in various standard formats, probably modern or later.
I mean, do you have strong feelings one way or the other about this card in Cube limited or limited in general?
I think it just doesn't do enough in Cube. I think, depending on the speed of the actual limited format, I think it might be good. But I think this card is very much like, they're trying to fix Glimpse of Nature for modern or something. And, like, Beck, I would say Beck is going to get cast a whole lot more than Call or Beck and Call.
Oh, yeah.
Like, for sure.
No one's going to debate you that. We're talking about a limited format where we have access to one of these cards, and we're still playing limited Magic. Is there a time... Like, would you ever feel dirty just casting Call?
No.
Like, I feel that, like, that's a fine card. Like,
putting 4 power of flying on the board for 6 is not exactly bad.
Yeah. And the Beck side, again, in limited, like, it's probably going to replace itself. It's going to effectively cycle more times than not, which is similar to how Glimpse of Nature works in limited formats. I just don't think it's like breaking through enough for me to be like, Beck Call, definitely.
Yeah. Alright, next up. The Baron.
The Blood Baron of Viz Copa. I felt like we were going to be one of the few people actually excited about this card, but it turns out the Magic playing community in general is way more excited about this guy than I thought.
I mean, big dude, pro-white, pro-black is excellent.
Lifelink is kind of what's really important for me. Having a guy that costs less than 6 with lifelink and black-white with also some color protection is pretty key.
Yeah. Trying
to make a comparison to Baneslayer Angel might be reaching a little bit, but not that much. I can definitely see why you'd be saying that. It's not a vanilla guy. It's got... I don't know about standard implications. I'm surprised at how excited, definitely monetarily, people are about this card. Watching it sell has been interesting to me.
He's definitely going to be, he's going to have a big impact on the board. He's hard to deal with. He's going to give a lot of decks fits. 4 toughness is a lot. It's not, the difference between 3 and 4 and 5 toughness, like the gap just becomes so much more relevant every time. So 4 is pretty good. I mean, he's still going to die to Flame Javelin, Charge, Psionic Blast, but the fact that he lives through Chain Lightning, Lightning Bolt, Incinerate is really relevant.
Good removal will always kill creatures. This one just happens to dodge some of the best removal in Cube.
Yeah.
No Path, no Swords, no Doomblade, no Go for the Throat, any of that kind of action is relevant, especially on a lifelinker that's really going to have the opportunity to swing the game. I think I like this guy even kind of before that.
Yeah. I do like that guy.
It could make Mizium Mortar see more play in Magic in general. Mizium Mortar, yes, hello, Flame Slash. Flame Slash is actually going into our cube in this most recent update. Although I think I added it before this card had even been spoiled yet. Completely unrelated. Mizium Mortars is a bit of a different call. I don't know if we talked about that card in the past. Mizium Mortars, I'm not the biggest fan of with the whole triple red side. It feels like it's super expensive to overload when Cube has access to more of the Earthquake type effects. I'd probably play Fault Line before I played Mizium Mortars.
Yeah.
Regardless, Blood Baron of Viz Copa, which is a mouthful.
Very good.
Very interested in. How many multicolor cards at each pair are we playing? What is it, 7 now? 7 or 8?
I'll check. Next up, Breaking and Entering.
So, for our cube and our own personal cube's philosophy, the mill X number of cards for a very small Y number of mana is something we've kind of moved away from. And Breaking and Entering, to me, feels like it kind of skirts that line, where now we have a mill 8 for 2, similar to Mill 10 for 2 with Glimpse of the Unthinkable, and there have been cubes I've seen that play Glimpse of the Unthinkable.
I think
not so much for me.
I mean, entering half of this card is very expensive, and I think paying 8 to try and do both sides is also very ambitious.
This is very much a fuse card that I see one side or the other being cast more often than not in a limited environment.
I think that especially for cubes, if you have the milling cards, you play Glimpse and Nemesis of Reason and that kind of stuff, then you're stoked about breaking. It's just another one of those. But if you're not playing the mill, either you don't have it in or you actively want to discourage it, I just don't see this making the cut. I think that
that's the other side of it. Like, I like the effects on the card. I do think that they're pretty expensive. The fact you can hit any graveyard with that reanimation is really nice, and the fact that it's not a Goiro's Vengeance, consume gruesome encore style effect is enticing. I don't like the cost on it, and the mill side feels a little bit awkward. I feel like if this card was to go into our cube, 9 out of 10 times someone would cast Entering. If they played it, have to get by the preliminary process, and then once in a great long while, you'll cast both sides, and even before that, you'll probably mill somebody out for 8 to kill them.
Yeah. Next up, Catch Release.
Making the cut, going in. I like
all parts of this card.
I like how we have to look at it sideways. We should have only made the technology where we could have made it look the correct orientation.
Yeah, it's fine. This is how it will look in a pack. You had to train yourself to not have to turn the cards so you're giving away tells.
Yeah, that was, I miss our good friend Pirate Aaron back in the Invasion Block days. One of the great tricks he would teach us, the younglings at the time, was that if you're engaged in a game, especially if you're in a top deck war, that when you draw a card, and it was like, I guess I'll preface this a little bit more. When you're playing limited Magic and you guys are like in a top decking war and you draw a land, so many players just telegraph that they've just drawn straight nothing, like they're a blank. And Aaron was a huge proponent of you draw on turn 13, your hand's empty, the board's empty, you draw a land, stop, turn it sideways, read it, take a few seconds, take a beat, read the artist syllable by a syllable, and then turn it back face up, and then pass. That always worked really well. So, back to the card at hand, Catch Release. We talked about this in a previous show. I love it. The 3-mana side, to be able to get a Planeswalker, to be able to kind of hit anybody, I think is great. It's just where I want to be. And in Cube, the release side, just that side of it, also can have a very big impact just on its own.
Oh, yeah.
And we're not even talking about putting these two cards together, because we're talking, we want to be critical. We want to talk about, is just the one thing going to happen? What is life like if we just cast one side of this card?
Despite the fact that this is pretty expensive, it's definitely going to get, both sides of this are going to get cast pretty regularly, and I do expect to see it fused, even though that costs a ton.
Yeah, I think the release side in conjunctioning with the release side is a whole game plan unto itself. Yeah. Similar to how you would play a Cataclysm or Balance or Wildfire kind of deck. Release can be its own strategy in limited, Cube limited especially, and then Catch is almost a bonus in that regard. But it can also swing games and kind of give another angle to these Izzet decks where we've mentioned in the past weeks need more things to start going for them.
Alright. What else we got? Exava.
So for the record, that Catch Release will make our Cube. I think that was in a very previous update.
Exava, Rectus, Blood Witch.
Sorry, take the lead for a second. We've got people RSVPing to Cube.
Okay. So, first strike, 4-power, haste guy. Again, like we talked about with Renegade Crassus, each other creature you control with a +1/+1 counter having haste. That is probably not going to come up all that often. The biggest problem that I have with Exava is that 2 black-red is one of the tightest mana costs that you can ask for in Cube, because the competition is so high. You've got, just off the top of my head, Falkenrath Aristocrat, Olivia Voldaren as creatures. Hellhole Rats is another one that's been in before. There are plenty of other spells that are at that cost, depending on what you're trying to do. So you don't want your gold section to be just all one cost. You don't want this and Olivia Voldaren and Falconrath Aristocrat and a bunch of other stuff that costs 4. You need to kind of spread it out to some degree. So I think that at least for right now, Exava's probably on the sidelines for us. It's very, very, very good, and I think that, if you want to play it in your cube, I don't think there's anyone to debate you on that. I think that for our purposes, we're going with Falconwrath and Olivia as the two over Exava, but I could certainly see a day where, we want to make things more aggressive, so Exava comes in over Olivia, or something like that. It's certainly close. They keep printing cards that are very good at this cost.
I think Eck kind of summed up our thoughts as we were talking about this card a lot. I think of most of the cards early in the process. This was one of the most major talking points. To that end, I'll just say it's weird that it has haste. Does that make sense?
It's sweet that it has haste.
Well, it says each other. You could just say creatures you control with +1/+1 counters have haste. Then you almost have this bit of redundancy.
Yeah.
Why would you leash it if you also required haste of it? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't know.
A little weird. Maybe it's maybe something I don't really understand. But 4/4 first strike haste for 4 is very sweet. A little less exciting with the other guys with +1/+1 counters. It's similar to the Renegade Crisis.
What I said 10 seconds ago.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I had multiple people texting me about Cube tonight.
So the short list version, I think, totally fine, totally a respectable Cube card. No one would argue if you put it in. We're not. We're just thinking that Olivia and Falconwrath are just better.
Falconwrath flying in haste 4 power. Olivia long game machine gun.
Yeah,
and that covers us. Is kind of how we feel.
Yeah.
I think we could stop and be like Blazing Spectre or Exava. If you were to add one card to your cube, which would you choose?
Hellhole Rats.
Come on.
I love Hellhole
Secret
Rats.
option C.
Yeah. All right. Far and Away. I love. Oh, this one is a beating.
I think we spent 2 seconds on it last week when we talked about it.
Yeah, it was just yep, snap.
Blue is really... it's so deep, it's so rich. It's hard to find ways to sneak effects like Unsummon into the cube. This is a card that allows us to do it, because we've got a little bit of that Tribute to Hunger, Unsummon action, coming together on one card.
This reminds me a lot.
Everybody goes home a winner.
This reminds me a lot of his Whiplash Trap.
Huh.
Like the getting 2 of their guys kind of thing.
Yeah.
For 5.
Yeah.
But you get so much more flexibility, and the fact that you kill one, this is just... And, on the occasional time where you get to return your own guy to, abuse and enter the battlefield trigger and edict them.
Oh, yeah. I think when I mentioned it last week, I was half expecting the far portion of the card to only reference your side of the battlefield.
Yeah.
It seems like it's so much better here.
Split cards go into the gold section. I will put a link to the cube list in chat for those who want to look at it.
As we go. I think it's on the Twitch page as well, but...
It is.
I'm as lazy as all of you guys are, too. I'd rather just link it.
There we go.
There we go. Far and Away, I think that's one of the... if you were to take 3 to 5 cards that pretty much everybody out there with a cube is going to put in their cubes, Far and Away is on that list.
Far and Away is definitely in there. In terms of... So, like we were talking about with the organization, the way we do it is split cards are in multicolor. Hybrid cards are only in considered monocolor. So Kitchen Finks is white or green. It's counted in that section. It is not a white-green card. But Far and Away is a blue-black card. You can do it any way you want. You could certainly have gold as a section, and then hybrids and split cards as their own subsection.
I have seen that, and I shy away from that. For a long time, gold didn't feel like it was deep enough to kind of carry... hybrid definitely is... Oh, sorry. This goes back to gold. Gold, there wasn't a depth of roster across all the color combinations. Finally, enough gold sets being printed, I feel like there is depth of roster. But, for example, hybrid doesn't have depth of roster. We couldn't be okay, every color gets 3 hybrid cards of any combination.
Right.
It's just not there. Some have 4 or 5 I'd like to play, some have 1.
Yeah.
And rather than kind of stretching it and then having things be the butt of jokes, why are you playing... Minotaur Sorcerer guy or whatever. We try to keep it as simple as possible. And with split cards, obviously there's not a lot of depth there to make it its own section, but it also doesn't feel like they're strictly one color. I could play Kitchen Finks in a white deck. I could play it in a green deck. I could play it in a green-black deck. I can play it all these combinations. It's still a very good card. It's going to act as though it's a one-color card. Split cards are a little bit different. Very rarely am I'm just going to play ice. I put ice in my deck. Maybe this new round of fuse cards breaks that a little bit, but not enough for me to be like, okay, we're going to treat them very differently.
Really, I mean, in terms of organization for Cube, if you're someone who owns a Cube, organize it in such a way that you best can have a grip on what's in, what's out, and where everything is, because it's really mostly a tool for you. To analyze, what should be in, what should go out, It's mostly like how you want it to be.
I mean, when it comes to the philosophy of organization, maybe it's mostly anal retentive for you and how you view cards, but for me, I really want to emphasize that when someone walks up to the cube for the first time that's never played with it, they shouldn't have to know all of these little niche things like, oh, well, this card kind of gets treated this card and is an exception to this series of cards, or this color, and really, this, that, and the other thing. It should be, you want it to be for the broadest player base to be as intuitive as possible and be like, oh, this makes sense.
Yeah.
So that goes into the decisions as well.
Moving on.
Legion's Initiative! I must be missing something. People think this card is just tits. And I think it's pretty good. And I'm a huge fan of this, slip and slide enters the battlefield things.
My biggest problem with it, it's not that it's bad, it's that red-white is so stacked right now. Like,
I don't want to, nitpick a color combination. I just want to be like, yeah, it's a two-color card. Like, if this card had been white, or it had been red, I've been like, yeah, it's probably going to get in there.
Oh, certainly.
The fact that, again, it's pretty much just that one effect. I don't think that, my red creatures have Orcish Oriflamme, or my white guys have Half Castle, is really getting it done for me. It's more like, okay, that stuff's a bonus. How good is this one-shot Wrath Dodge, or this one-shot, reset my Gisu Slinger, Keldon Champion, Flicker Wisp, Blade Splicer, Cloudgoat Ranger opportunity? Are those cards so impactful in a game that you're going to play this kind of seal-style enchantment to kind of break it?
Yeah. It's okay. I'm not thrilled with it.
I mean, don't get me wrong. It's a good card.
Yeah.
It's not a bad card. Granted, you have to have action to make it good. If your opponent is in a creature matchup,
this is less than stellar.
Yeah, I mean, if your opponent doesn't have Wraths in their deck,
it's still
you just have value creatures in your deck.
Some pumping, a little bit.
Goblin Trenches. I miss Goblin Trenches.
Rise of the Hobgoblins.
Yeah, Rise of the Hobgoblins. There's a card I wouldn't mind bringing back, and we can kind of cheat that one in too, because it's the red hybrid white.
Yeah. So yeah, Legion's Initiative, fine, not stellar. Not really for us, I don't think.
So bring in Rise of the Hobgoblins, make some guys. Flicker Wisp it. Make a bunch more guys. A lot of my crazy plans involve Aether Vial, because then you get to save a bunch of mana.
Yeah.
Okay. Legion's Initiative is also it's one of those really expensive mythics that people are all kind of uppity about right now, and if you were going to put in your cube, I would definitely say, don't go out and acquire it aggressively. Do some more theory crafting with that card first before you jump in.
Next up.
Nivix Cyclops. Talked about this guy a little bit before.
We like big butts and we cannot lie.
Yeah.
Here at the Magic Box
this guy's
podcast.
Right on the edge. I almost put this guy in the cube.
If he was just blue...
No, that would be really good.
Yeah, I think he would be really fighting with Convertible Turtle. As it stands, just because blue-red is so much tighter, I think that...
Almost.
It's
funny.
hard to justify him. I do like him a lot.
I think it's Ral Zarek. Because if Ral Zarek... Oh, no, it's another thing.
Yeah.
Because there was a change... In the change log, we made some adjustments, and I think for 5 minutes, this guy was in the list for that very reason. I mean, we talked about it a lot on the show before. People are going to attack into this guy left and right. You're playing red-blue. You're playing the home of all the instants that are really, really important and good. You're going to get value out of this card. It's going to be a win condition. Earthquaking for 3, casting Slagstorm, doing all these things and attacking is real. This card can not only be a blocker, but it could also be a win condition. I like it a lot in Cube, especially now that I've taken the time to kind of break down the numbers of where it was good. I think initially in a vacuum I was like, it could be good. It's a wall. Maybe it's going to get a free guy every once in a while. But I'm really warming up to it. I think that's I mean, again, I don't know much about Pauper Cube, but if that...
if you're trying to have a budget cube list of any variety, this guy is definitely going in.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Turnburn has not been discussed yet.
We'll get there.
I think this is like alphabetic by section is how we're doing it.
I don't know
So
how
we're in
you
the
did
N
this.
of gold cards. No, it makes sense. Look.
Yeah. All right. So after Nivik Cyclops comes Notion Thief, another card that I had to read twice.
We messed up on this guy last week.
So
long story short, is very good with Jace Bellerin.
yeah, so when I first saw this card, I thought it was when it comes into play, you get their draws until end of turn.
You thought it was a trigger.
I thought it was a trigger. So I was like, oh, this is okay. It'd be really sweet if you could get their draw step, like, you know, because it's a trigger. Like, if it was just full plagiarize, like, that'd be good. And it was like, no, that'd be broken. They'd never draw another card for the rest of the game. I was like, what? Okay.
Maybe as good as advertised.
I mean, yes, very good with Wheel of Fortune, Memory Jar.
I started with mild indifference to this card. I started with, you know, if you're not playing against the control decks, the card advantage decks, the blue and black decks, really, you just have a very fragile, flashy hill giant. But eventually, I kind of came around. You know, and again, if this card was white, if it was any combination of Naya colors, it'd be a very different story. I'd like this card a lot more. But since you're in a color combination where attacking is much more rare, control decks are more dominant, I kind of had to readjust my thought process on
That is actually a very good point. The fact that this is not a May means Consecrated Sphinx will kill you.
Oh.
So, that's interesting.
Interesting.
I had, again, reading cards relevant to analysis.
Oh, it just straight up kills you. There's
It
not
just
even like
straight
there's not
up
even like
kills
a end the library, do something.
Yeah.
Well, even before I knew that little cute niche effect that I will now obviously use to my own advantage, I came around. Originally, I was like, Notion Thief, no good. But I'm going to give it a shot.
I think it's okay. I think that, creatures with flash are definitely where blue and black want to be, even if they're not the most sturdy. Having this effect is going to be, occasionally it's not going to do anything, and occasionally it's going to be a total blowout.
I mean, many moons ago in Q.
It would be much better if it was a 1/3 instead of a 3/1.
Oh, yeah, I remember asking for a 2/4 last week, and maybe that was a little too much. But,
Bold.
a long time ago we played Widwin, the Biting Gale from Lorwyn.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of the thought behind that card was, end of turn, you want to be able to Cryptic Command, Factor Fiction, or play your threat. And I think Notion Thief kind of also does that. Why this doesn't have the Appetite for Brains art is a shame. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't think that guy is so much thieving notions as much as
Yeah.
he is eating someone's head.
Excellent with brains. Excellent against brainstorm. Excellent against looting.
Yeah, I'm almost like afraid of how much rage this card is going to.
Yeah, like thirst for knowledge / compulsive research is just going to be a.
Yeah, don't draw any. Oh, by the way, discard.
Oh, or careful consideration.
Yeah,
Woof. Like, that's a blowout.
gonna probe you. All right, Notion Thief. End of the day, worth trying.
Yeah,
that's kind of what we got to.
Totally fine. What do we got next? Ooh, I like this one.
Good.
It's slow, but I like it.
Obsidat's Aid. Last week, a card I was pretty convinced wasn't going to happen. Still pretty convinced isn't going to happen. I think it's a little too expensive and a little too slow and a little too, getting the train to slowly move out of the station to get everything happening for this card. What do you think, Eck?
I mean, it kind of reminds me a lot of Beacon of Unrest, which was in for a long time.
Yeah, it was also just a black card.
Five
Shoveled back into your library.
Right. I mean,
this gets any permanent.
Gold cards are kind of held to a different standard because the competition is so high. You only get we're a big cube and we only have 6 spots for each color combination. So if you're not nuts, then it's very difficult to break in. I do like this effect. I think it's cool. It is slow, but living the dream and getting a nickel bolus back or something wacky is just really exciting to me.
In your deck that plays blue mana, red mana, black mana, and white mana.
Yeah, standard. I mean, I think that, the fact that it always is going to have something to go get, probably. Very rarely are you going to be like, oh, I can't get anything with this.
Is it? I mean, it's only your graveyard. Beacon hit either graveyard.
It's true.
Or any graveyard.
Get a fetch land back?
Oh, that's just what I want to do
I
for
know.
5 mana as
I
a
know.
sorcery.
It's a little on the slow side. I think that it's probably too slow, especially on Burial Rites. On Burial Rites is treated as strictly black.
Yeah.
But
any card that can function on its... With a flashback cost of a different color, but can function effectively on its own with the one side is
Lingering
just,
Souls is white, for instance.
I've definitely cast that card for just white mana. And won games.
Alright.
Luckily.
So, a little slow, but good. But slow.
Not going to make the cut. Not so much.
Well, Zarek.
Got talked into it.
We talked a lot about this.
I didn't feel like I need to be super talked into it, but I got talked into it. I hope that this is a big Wildfire Pro card. I hope that people like and use this guy with that
Hit an aim.
lightning bolt stuff to get it out of your way.
I think this guy's fine. I mean,
The day that someone in a draft asks for some coins will be an interesting day. It'll probably happen, but I'm not really counting my chickens.
I mean, I was pretty indifferent to Raul when he got spoiled. People kind of talked me into him. I think he'll be okay. I do not think he will be fantastic, but I think that he will serve his purpose fine. I mean, I think he is going to be a very middle-of-the-road cube card when all is said and done. And that's fine. I mean,
For red-blue, I mean, he's a good role player. We don't
Sure.
have anything really going on at red, blue, and 2.
yeah.
And I think that, again, as much as we kind of
I envision...
talk down to is it as a draft strategy in
I-
shows past, we're getting multiple cards here that are helping it out.
I envision him coming into play, bolting a guy, and then if you get to untap with him, he generates a mana, or you potentially get to live the dream with Grim Monolith or Mana Vault or something, and that's exciting. But it's just I don't know how often that's going to come up and how often it's going to be good.
I wouldn't race to buy this card either. People are asking thoughts on a good price to pick up.
Ralzeric is going to be one of those cards that it's a planeswalker, it's mythic, all this stuff.
Well,
it's
yeah,
gonna be
in
healer and
today's
stuff.
Magic, so Dragon's Maze is actually going to be in a very interesting place because Dragon's Maze is probably going to be opened a lot less than other spring sets because we're going to
Modern Masters.
Well, yeah, we're going to go Modern Masters right into M14 really quickly. So Dragon's Maze is going to be overlooked a lot more than a lot of spring sets. So that's going to add a little bit more value to this set than most traditional spring sets are going to have. But that's not going to make Ral Zarek double in value or something. What it's going to do is it's going to give it a little bit of incremental value. I mean, this is Ral Zarek in the long term. If we want to stretch him out 1, 2, 5 years, is going to be a card where casual players are going to see it and love it. I mean, I think as where you saw the excitement right now with Carrick's Thumb and how those are going to picked up in a fervor, on a longer timeline, Carrick's Thumb and Ral Zarek will be worth something because they both exist and people love to play casual Magic. As far as tournament Magic goes, Ral Zarek doesn't look like it's going to have an impact to me, so you just need to, if you're the guy who's trying to pick this up for casual play, wait on it. Wait 6 to 10 weeks for this stuff to get opened a whole bunch before people jump ship.
I could
other
definitely.
things.
I mean, I don't know off the top of my head what it's pre-selling at, but I could definitely see this thing within a pretty reasonable amount of time dropping to somewhere in the $20 to $30 range and probably sitting there for quite a while.
No, I mean, it's also worth pointing out that set redemptions have had a positive impact on the value of IRL cards because the quintupled in price to make redemption.
That's true.
But it's not... it shouldn't be as impactful in the long run. Again, it's a market settles thing. And MTGO and Magic in general are only still continuing to grow, which means there's just more of everything out there as long as Wizards continues to print at the same pace. So yeah, I mean, don't rush to get Ral Zarek. I think that's the moral of this story.
Next up, Sin Collector.
Initially, I was kind of against this guy. I was like, he's so narrow, he's going to miss a lot, he's going to get killed by the things they were holding anyway, or he's going to whatever. I've started to come around on it. I think that there's actually a kind of an opportunity now in Cube to have more of that kind of aggressive hand attack strategies. Like if you put in Tide Hollow Sculler, you put in Sin Collector, maybe you put in Mesmeric Fiend, you got a stew going.
Sin Collector.
You have a bit of a strategy.
I feel like if you want to do that though, Sin Collector is he's down the list. Like, I would not be putting Sin Collector in a cube that did not already have Tide Hollow Scholar and Gerard's Verdict and probably Mesmeric Fiend and possibly some other aggressive discard like that. Like, the fact that he costs 3 and is a 2/1 and only gets instants or sorceries makes him a combination of like slow and narrow that is kind of a recipe for disaster.
I don't think you're. I think you're kind of shitting on this guy a whole bunch when you don't need to. Like, think of it like Overmaster or Insist or.
Those are not good cards, sir.
Okay. How can I convey this point? He's kind of like an all is clear sign.
Sure.
Like,
because you get to look at their hand.
Yeah, in circumstances where you don't want to overcommit to the board, maybe you don't have a lot of card advantage. Like you're not holding ancient cravings and things like that in your hand. You can cast this card that has a body on it. It is a 2-power creature. You can find out exactly where you're at, and you can know if you can like call in the reinforcements or maybe sit back a little bit. And at the same time, you're either getting their spell or you know they don't have anything.
Again, I also bring up the fact that it's gold. Competition stiff. I hate to keep harping on that point.
No,
but I think it's a valid one to make. The gold cards have to be very good because there are so few of them. Competition is very high. I think that this guy is not even the best white-black guy that involves discard.
No, and I think if we were going to put Sync Collector in Cube, I would put those 2 cards that I prefaced earlier, and I would have that be more of a strategy. But I think part of it is because there isn't so much of like a black-white aggressive strategy in the Cube. I mean, we talked a lot about how with Orzhov, there's a lot of heavy color commitment to things. And kind of at the end of the day, we went for more the Blood Baron of Vizkopa style in the Black-White Orzhov section than the Sin Collector Tidehell Sculler angle, which is still an angle, and I like those cards. I think Sin Collector is playable. It's just not the direction we want to go.
Yeah.
Spike Jester.
Spike Jester.
So, Goblin Death Raiders is the first thing I think about when I see this card.
Which one was that?
That is the one from Shards of Alara.
Oh,
same casting cost, same power, same toughness. Replaced haste with trample.
Right. Haste a lot better?
Haste is a lot better because hopefully you're going to get in there twice with this card. Maybe the other card that you could kind of point to it. I guess Shred Freak is not a bad example either. I was going to say Reckless Ogre from M13.
Yeah.
So you're having a guy that you, in theory, are going to hit your opponent with. Like, you want him to Lava Axe, and then you want him to do more because he's a creature, not a spell. So you want him to keep hitting again and be a win condition, or you want to have him trade with something your opponent cares about and be good. Spike Jester has that capacity. It could do those things. It just isn't going to make our cube because Red-Black's too jam-packed with good stuff.
It's very good, and I think that...
the guy from Shards of Alara, there's a Gorklan Rampager, is just a 2/2 trample haste. He's not a 3/2. But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah. I think that for the most part, this guy's fine. One of the biggest problems with Black-Red is its mana, and this guy's not helping that. You want Black-Black, Red-Red early. You want Red on turn 1, Black on turn 1. So, someone in the chat brought up, this is better than Rakdos Shred Freak. Well, it kind of is, but it's also significantly harder to cast. Whereas Shred Freak is a much easier card to cast in a color combination that is notoriously...
Jundhack Blade, sorry. Jundhack Blade is a magic card.
Ah,
it's
yeah.
a little bit different. Not quite the same, but I see what you're getting at.
Rakdos Shred Freak has the benefit of being very easy to cast, whereas this card has the problem of being very difficult to cast. And it's very difficult to have a 2-drop that you really always want on turn 2 that's that difficult to cast.
Yeah, the thing about Shred Freak is it's going to go in the NBA decks, and it's going to go in the mono-red decks.
I think if this card cost red-red or black-black...
If it was just hybrid?
No.
So it was just strictly better?
If it was,
if it was a monocolored
or if it was
card,
black-black, right? If it was a monocolored card, it would be in.
Oh,
in either color.
It would be very good, yes.
Yeah.
I agree. I would be surprised if they would actually print that right now, which is weird because we live in this watchwolf land of magic.
I know. So...
Spike Jester may be a common uncommon cube inclusion across the board. I don't
definitely, know. Yeah. Poppery, very good.
Poppery.
Yeah, this one.
Back to Teysa.
The old lady.
She ain't old. I don't know where you're picking up chicks, but that chick's not old.
I think in the
In the spiritual sense?
No, in the flavor, the lore, or whatever. She's supposed to be like an old lady.
Oh, things I don't read.
Yeah, I know.
Man, I listen to a podcast books of magic, like story arc history.
Nice.
Yeah, I learned a lot and then quickly wanted to vomit it all back out.
So Tesa's cost 7, which is a lot.
Yeah, this one is this is like one of the oldest ones, so I feel like we've talked about it, but it's worth talking about again because it's been a while. Protection from creatures is cute. Vigilance is cute. 4/4 vanilla. Beyond that is kind of surprising for 7.
I think that the creature dealing combat damage to you, you destroy it, you get a guy, is amazing if you're at 12,
50.
13, 15 life. If you're at a life total where you're not going to get one shot. The problem is because this costs 7, there are going to be a lot of games where you cast this and you're at like 5.
And then you die.
And then you die with all the triggers on the stack.
Yeah.
Like,
it's weird because it's not a super enticing reanimation target. Like, getting this card out on turn 3 changes the game, but not in like, I'm going to kill you with this powerful creature. It's just more like, now I have a 4/4. I have a Dirkwood Boars, and if you play spells in your deck, you're going to have to deal with it in a similar fashion.
Again,
I mean, yes, I'd rather have Elesh Norn every day of the week.
If this cost less mana and was smaller,
Yeah. I think that is a recurring theme from Dragon's Maze spoilers.
All these cards, like,
there are sweet effects on overcosted Magic cards.
Yeah. Okay. Toil and Trouble.
I love this card.
I know you do.
This is one we kind of disagree on.
I think it is too slow and too bad. Talking about, especially about how stacked Black-Red is. This is certainly a different effect than a lot of the other cards in Black-Red, but it's not one that I'm thrilled about. I think that mostly this is going to be black control decks are taking this for the Night's Whisper side.
It's full-blown Sign in Blood.
Yeah, sure. This is okay. I'm just not... I'm not thrilled with it.
What if it was an instant?
It would be much better.
How much better?
Like, I would not be arguing it with you about it.
Okay. That's all it would take. So
Yeah.
it's costed effectively. You just think that the sorcery speed part of it is really
Right.
what's
Like,
doing
if
it.
it's... Like, once it becomes an instant, you can either draw cards at the end of their turn, which is sweet, or you can occasionally use the trouble side to blow them out. Catch them in a really bad spot. Especially we're putting in Sphinx's Revelation.
Yeah, and with, like, post upheaval.
Right.
Which is really where cards like Sudden Impact have shined in the past.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's its only downfall, is it's just a sorcery. I think it's costed, not perfectly, but reasonably with what you'd align your expectations to be.
I think it's costed fine. I just want it to be an instant, not a sorcery.
Yeah.
I'm just very underwhelmed with this card, and Black-Red is so tight that
And you just want to fly right by it. You're going to let me say how much I like this card. I think that it has more reach than you give it credence for. I think that it's this big burn spell late in the game to be able to kill an opponent almost.
I mean, the minimum you're hitting them for is 4.
Yes, the minimum. And odds are it's going to be more. But the toil side is really, it's the seemingly cycle effect of the card, which is going to happen a lot, which makes it good. So to me, that's what gives it reach. And the first time that someone just casts Trouble and has that be good, it's going to be a good day.
Sure.
I think those things will happen. It's not the best. I mean, I wanted to give our Black-Red section a bit of a change-up as far as like what it did.
I mean,
It felt
I'm all
like-
for variety, and that's certainly a great argument for this card, in that it's not just like it's not another Ixava, Falkenrath Aristocrat, whatever. It does something different. It's not just a kill spell, So that's cool, and I like that. I just am not really sure how good this is going to be.
I mean, if it's a miss, it's not that bad of a miss. I just didn't want Red-Black to devolve into Terminates and 4-drops.
Agreed. Next one up, Tristani Summoner. I love
So we
this
mentioned
guy.
way back at the advent of the worm spoil times that the bar on Celestia was very, very high. And this guy maybe won my heart over, or maybe actually does as many things as we think and hope it will. This card is Boss Tristani Summoner, 10 power, 7 mana,
I mean,
Revelarkable, Sneak Attackable.
we kept talking. it was funny when they spoiled this card. We're like, oh, that's cute, and then over the course of a couple days, we just kind of kept trading back and forth like cute interactions or like cool things you can do with it, and it kind of slowly like snowballed into like this card just does so much. Like,
yeah, it's just really where I want to be. I mean, we all remember Cone of Beasts from World Wake, and I'm glad we live in an era of Magic where we can kind of have that as a card. I mean, I remember Rosewater's article talking about Bestial Menace, and what it took to get to that in terms of Magic, and this is just the next logical step. Having a 1/2 that makes a 2/2, a 3/3, a 4/4 is so cute and so cubely relevant. I mean, talk about the instant army in a can. That also, this one's not a sorcery. It's also a guy that has all these other interactions. Great for opposition decks.
I really enjoy this card. I think it's going to be good. I think that it's going to find a home in a lot of different strategies.
And we're not even talking about the fact that like one of the creatures has vigilance, one of them has trample. Like they do things. It's not just all vanilla stuff all the time.
How sweet would it have been if one of them had flying?
That would have been pretty gross.
Yeah.
When it was like a 2/2 bird, a 3/3 trampoly like elephant, and then like a 4/4 vigilance.
That'd be good.
That'd be very good. I think that would be that's where it gets a little too good.
Yeah. So that guy, awesome. I think he'll have a home in.
Yeah, Restoration Angel. I mean, there's a lot of things that make it
Resto,
very saucy.
Flicker Wisp, Revelark,
and then,
Momentary Blink,
regular limited. We're not even talking about the evolve implications.
Oh yeah. Turn and Burn.
Turn and Burn. That is the card that left Nivix Cyclops on the sidelines. Finally, a way to kill Dark Blightsteel Colossus.
Kill it dead, no questions asked.
For a little while.
It will not kill Falconwrath Aristocrat, however.
Why not?
Important to point out.
Why not?
It gaining Indestructible is not an ability of the card, of the creature. It is it's like a static effect that the card has until end of turn. So turn will not remove it. So
see, I was having this conversation with somebody, and I had been convinced of the contrary.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I was like, Indestructible isn't like it's not a shield like Regeneration is.
No.
So like if you cast this on a creature with Regeneration, the player can apply a Regeneration shield,
right,
and then it will not die. Interesting.
The card does not. Falconwrath Aristocrat does not have Indestructible. It is indestructible. If that makes any sense.
It does when you say it.
I mean,
in terms of Magic, the game and the gameplay, not as much. But when you use words to describe it, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. So, even that being said, I think this card is going to be excellent. I think it's going to be, both sides of this are going to get cast by themselves a ton. I think that it's going to get fused all the time. It's going to 2-for-1 people in combat left and right. I think that it's going to solve a lot of problems that Blue-Red can have. I think it's just stellar. I think top to bottom, this is going to be one of the all-stars from Dragon's Maze for Cube. And the fact that it's an uncommon, it's going to be, you can put it in your Pauper Cubes. Or...
Yeah, no, this card's going to be very popular in Cube. And again, Cube is still a limited format. Combat takes place in limited. Things will take place in limited. So you get to make an attacker in 01, block it with your guy. You get to shock one of their other guys. It is so versatile. It does so much. And again, you can cast just one side or the other, and it will be impactful in a game of Magic. Which is, it kind of, at the end of the day, it meets all the requirements that you would want for a cube kind of combat trick-related card, which are so hard to evaluate, and a lot of people just don't want to play Giant Growth, so this kind of circumvents that.
I just really like this card.
Yeah, we'll be going, X is going to type it out, as I say. We will be going over the change list after we finish going through the cards on the spoiler that were the notables.
We're almost done. We're in the Vs.
We are in the Vs.
Varol's the Scar Striped.
So this is one of those cards I did have to read twice, because when I initially read it, as soon as it gets to the word scavenge and then has all the reminder text, I thought the card was over.
Oh, right. The regenerate kind of like hid into the reminder text?
Yeah, it kind of like bled into the reminder text. So, yeah, this card is obviously a lot better than I originally gave it credit for when I was talking to people about it.
Get your Death Shadows and Freezing Dreadnoughts while they're hot.
Oh, man, that'd be such a weird excuse to put Dreadnought in Cube.
Such a beanie. Get a Trigger Mage.
Yeah.
So this guy's cool.
So it's not, initially, Grizzly Bear.
Grey Ogre.
Sorry, Grey Ogre. Ugh.
Yeah.
Grey Ogre that then valued your graveyard, which is fine. Recurring effect, getting value, all good stuff. It was a Grey Ogre, though, so I was like, it was terrible. Now that you can sack guys to it to regenerate it so that it can actually do the things you want it to do, it definitely moves it up in the ranks for me. I still, at the end of the day, don't think it's going to make the cut on our cube, but I don't fault people for playing it because I think that it's a cool angle to explore.
I think that depending on where you want to take Black-Green, this guy can absolutely see play. For instance, we're not playing Lulteth Troll. We don't have much of the Black-Green. Like, our Black-Green cards are not very aggressive. But if you wanted to be aggressive and have kind of like a creature, especially like any kind of graveyard recursion stuff, cool effects that you can kind of work through that in Black-Green, this guy gets a lot better. As it stands, he would be in our cube list at least, he would be kind of very alone, if that makes any sense. I definitely see him as kind of part of a package deal, but that package deal is totally fine, and absolutely can see cube play. I just would not put him in without the other kind of supporting cast of cards that work with him. Even if you want to go so deep as to have like Grizzly Salvage, which is actually a totally fun card.
No, I think Lotless Troll and Grizzly Salvage are both cards that I would want to have in the cube, and might make it in before this guy did. I mean, I'm a really big...
But I feel like
Grizzly
once those
Salvage
two
fan.
cards are in, this guy gets so much better.
Yeah, and again, to me, it's kind of a pick your package kind of thing, similar to like the whole Sin Collector Tide Hollow Sculler angle. I could see walking up and drafting a cube that had this card, Grizzly Salvage, and Lotless Troll in it, and having those be very synergistic and very good, where we're just playing more of the kind of like straight power removal package in the Abrupt Decay, Maelstrom Pulse kind of cards, or even Vraska, which I think gets a lot of crap from people, but I think for me, like, I would want to add if I was to cut Vraska, I would want to add like this whole kind of package, which when we talked about RTR, which is kind of the reason that Lawless Troll got left behind for Vraska.
Yeah.
But no, I like that a lot. I mean, I could see. That's the thing about when you come back and make changes to cube as new sets come out with older cards. Depending on how our cube plays, we could be like, oh, we really want to have more on the low end. We want to kind of cultivate maybe more graveyard strategies and be like, okay, these 3 cards are coming out of Black-Green, not because they're not good enough, not because they're just being outclassed, but now we explore this other package, and this is a great example for that. Voice of Resurgence. This was
a lot about this.
Yeah, this was a debate topic when we first talked about it.
Controversy.
I'm still pretty firmly in the isn't going to happen right now camp. I still like Megatic Teague, and I think that's really the card that is competing against the most, as we've talked about how extensive the green-white section is in Cube in this update.
One of the biggest reasons I think that this card's not going to be as good in Cube as it will be in other places is that you can't play more than one of them. Like, having 2 of these in play is so insane.
Yeah. I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
It's not legendary. I mean, you can clone it.
Right. It used to be Amara. You read about that?
No. This was going to be...
Rosewater admitted that this card, the rules text on this in Amara got switched because they wanted to realign all the Maze Runners to the same rarity. So originally Amara was going to be like a 4-mana 2/2 or whatever that did this, and Voice of Resurgence was going to be a 7-mana 5/7 that had the token prevention.
That makes so much more sense.
Yeah.
There it is, ladies and gentlemen. The whole thing is solved.
Yeah.
The maze.
So
that makes way more sense.
Yeah. So I mean, like, had that happened, like,
this card wouldn't be as good.
Right, because it would cost more and be a legend.
And for everyone out there that wants to know more about how excellent Magic cards get made, it's because decisions very late in the game like this happen.
See Skull Clamp.
Yumazawa's GT.
Yeah.
These are examples of when design
has to make decisions in the last week.
Yeah, and rarity. Oh my gosh! Yeah, we talk about Magic suffering from having to keep symmetry in cycles. Like, if they just had these cards exist and have that one Maze Runner be mythic, like, then you could just let the story mongers out there just like weave their own tales about, well, that one's mythic. It must have won. It must have been the actual Maze Runner. It's that good. That would have been fine.
Yeah. So this guy is very good. I don't fault anyone for putting in cube. He's not.
It could make a
Green
charge
White
later.
is so stacked. I
Yeah.
mean, top to bottom. Even historically, has had excellent cards, and it just keeps getting more.
Well, we could kind of do an episode about cards that occurred like that. I mean, I know a decent number of the stories. Like, I'd want to tap Morrow again for to more of those kind of tales, because I love knowing things like that. And the internet is so quick and so good at just ripping a new one to these guys that work so hard to make these cards. Like, oh, why did no one ever see this thing, and how did you mess it up? When really, like, there's so much more going on to why Jite had to give -1/-1 counters as opposed to make black mana, or why Skullclamp had to give -1 to toughness because that was supposed to be considered a detriment to the card.
Right, it's supposed to be a drawback.
Yeah, all these things that we may never have heard about. We did talk about Quentin Hoover for more than a second. If you go back to the beginning of the show,
we went pretty deep on.
Well, I try to give a bit of a tribute.
Yeah.
I miss him. I had a birthday cake once that was a Best of a Doppelganger ice cream cake.
That is embarrassing.
It was actually pretty sweet.
Embarrassingly delicious.
Oh my god! And they did the frosting that was like all blue and white around the outside, and they had the. I was.
How old were you? Like 22?
Yeah. This is why you're fat website moment.
Yeah.
Ate a lot of that cake.
So last but not least on the list, Maze's End. I assume this is on this list mostly because of the proposed errata for Maze's End.
Yeah, I have to give a lot of credit to John Locks for having this idea in passing just on Twitter, and he was like, hey, what if you had... So, people have Nissa Vane in their cube, and when you draft it, you get some Mrs. Chosens. You have a Squadron Hawk, you get all the Squadron Hawks. And accumulated knowledge, you get accumulated knowledges.
Right.
Maze's End goes a bit of a different angle, and one that I think is really cool here, where if you draft Maze's End, you get all 10 gates, and then if you choose to play Maze's End, you must play all 10 gates in your deck.
Right, it occupies 11 spaces, basically.
But they're land spaces.
Right.
No, talk about having the slowest cube deck ever.
Oh my god. And then they like Stone Rain one, and you're just like, shit.
But you could look at Maze's End as being this great opening into drafting 5-color.
Right. If you are willing to have that kind of errata function, here are the gates, whatever. I think that's kind of funny and cute. I wouldn't necessarily be too big of a fan of that. Also, this is just the slow. At least, people compare it to Thawing Glaciers in terms of slowness. At least this taps for mana.
Look, be real, kids. We're not putting Maze's End in to win with the end of the maze win condition. We're putting it in as this sweet, 5-color enabler that would be kind of fun. You can go super deep and play Fast Bond, Amulet of Vigor. No one will ever do this because those cards are so narrow.
Yeah.
But you could. I'm just saying, for anyone out there that runs that Nissa Vane type package, or those things I mentioned before.
Or the Squadron Hawk package.
Yeah, anything like that, I think this would be a cool addition. And it gives a new space to play with. I don't think it's going to be a last pick in all the drafts. I think that there are definitely players that are going to want to draft 5-color, where they look at Maze's End as I have access to all these lands. I'm not going to play basic land in my deck.
I'll just go ahead and say this. I don't want this in Cube.
Oh, it's not going to happen for us. We don't do that errata stuff.
I can understand the concept behind why people would do that, or it could be cool. I don't think it's for us. You would have to have also, the slower your cube is, the more realistic this is.
And the slower your cube is, the possibly less fun it is. I don't know. The environment seems more like you're playing a long game of EDH than you are of playing a...
You mean a normal game of EDH?
in a limited...
Long is built into it.
Oh my gosh. I got linked to a thing about EDH cubing.
I don't even want to know.
No,
don't even say it.
Talk about, the guys talking about it were yeah, if you only have 3 or 4 hours, you should probably just regular cube. This is more like an 8 or 9 hour process.
No, thank you.
And I was why would you ever? I don't understand. I'd rather cube draft 2 or 3 times than EDH cube draft once.
Yeah.
So that's that for everything we like out of Dragon's Maze. I don't think we left a single stone unturned. I think we covered every card that I would consider at all. That's not all of those are going to make our list, but that is where we are at. As Eck does a little sweet copy-paste action to bring us up to our next segment, where we talk about the updated changelog.
So, a lot of the cards that we just talked about are going in, but as with any update to Cube, we are going to also change a number of other cards, because that's just kind of how it works.
So last week on the show, we kind of had the initial changelog, and the way the initial changelog comes about is I'll usually sit down and I'll brainstorm the things that have worked or haven't worked recently in the cube and try to think of new ways to do things.
So this is our current changelog of what we are debating. I'm going to go ahead and delete you. Right?
That sign on the video, guys, it could become something else similar.
Whoop.
I don't know. I don't think a whole lot has changed since our last episode. We talked about Aetherling and Aeon Chronicler. Oh, I gave you a shout out to Into the Royal as well.
I do like Into the Royal.
Eck wanted more Into the Royal, so I thought we'd remove another 4-mana counterspell. Which means with this update, we'll actually be losing Rewind and Dismiss to try to make things a little bit faster. It kind of goes in conjunction with cutting all those bounce lands, that kind of thing.
The 4-mana counterspells are pretty hard to,
justify?
I mean, it's just they have to be so good. Like Cryptic Command, yes, but there are very few other competitors at that.
How is Rewind better than Into the Royal?
It's not. The cards on the left of this column are going in. The cards on the right are what are being taken out for them.
Yes.
If that was not clear.
I know the arrow is a bit deceiving.
Yeah.
But it's more like, this card goes in. What does it go in for? Let's point out at that other card. I don't really like... They're not... Blue is a color where you're comparing them a little bit less.
I do like Probe.
Probe is awesome.
It would be sweet if we could also get Jilt in.
Okay. Well,
Jilt
would you prefer Jilt over Into the Royal? Because I think that's like your one shot right now.
Into the Royal being... Because Jilt is only return a creature, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They only target creatures.
The fact that Into the Royal is...
non-land permanents?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm willing to give any of these things a shot. I mean, again, trying to work more bounce into the cube has not been super easy. It's not that there's no love for Bloodgift Demon. I was just going to help everybody out. Replace all. Whoa! Yes, go back to the beginning and replace them all. We've replaced 61.
There you go.
Yeah.
Everybody happy? The magic of changing the arrows. There we go. Bloodgift Demon is just... He's good, but he's a bit on the slow side. Again, black, it seems like every time we do a cube change, black always has the most cards. Is the most turmoil, because we're constantly trying to find like some new cool thing for black to do, because it's been so historically bad.
I do feel like we've been pretty aggressive trying to shift black around.
We've gone very deep on trying to make black better.
I'm trying to think if anything has changed from last week. I don't think a single card in this section changed.
In black?
This is the exact same list we looked at last week on the show.
In black?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the same, including the barter spell.
Bartar.
Bartar.
All right,
Did we talk about white at all?
I mean, I'm trying to touch on new things. Like, people can go back to last week, because we kind of gave a quick overview.
Pyrold Shaman now coming in for Goblin Goon. Goon, for those curious, because I've actually gotten a couple of questions about that from a few different sources. Goon is primarily there for Wildfire. That was the idea.
Yeah.
Having guys that you could cast before Wildfire and then curve into it that would live through it. Especially in red, you know, if you would like to do a Gatherer search for yourself, cards that cost 5 or less mana with 5 or more toughness in red, the list is very small and mostly bad. So
that's why we play Tefferderm.
We play the full non-bow Tefferderm.
I think that players with Goblin Goon, it wasn't intuitive enough for them. Like, I look at Goblin Goon, and I look at, like, an example like Ulamog's Crusher, where you had to put the text on him to be like, hey, do this thing you're supposed to do, hey.
Yeah.
And then this card will be good. If you don't do that, it might not be good. And I look at Goblin Goon, and I think Goblin Goon needs, like, extra lines of text in Cube for players to evaluate it properly. I would, like, walk past games where it was just sitting on the battlefield not doing anything.
Yeah.
And people would, like, curse the sky if they're Goblin Goon. I'd be like, well, you're not...
You have 7 creatures.
You're
and
not
one of them is
playing
a
it
Goblin
right.
Yeah.
Like,
Pyrold Shaman should be very good. I think that card's going to be excellent. GP's coming in along with Step Links, because we're putting in another set of fetch lands and the Mirage lands.
Yeah, that's down the land section.
Crater Hellion.
I like that guy a lot. He's a big sweeper.
I mean, the Garden Hellkite very rarely saw play just because it's so expensive. And even though Crater Hellion has Echo, it's a lot easier to just get to 6.
Does any card anywhere work inside Word?
Huh?
Does your any card anywhere?
No.
Oh, okay. I didn't think so. Yeah, so no changes. I mean, so yeah, we added Pyrewise Shaman. No changes to green. Green is probably the least touched in this whole update. As much as you want to see that Skylasher. We'll make some proposals. I think next week we'll come back. Who knows what it'll look like next week. Artifacts, nothing else has changed than we talked about last week. We're losing Platinum Angel and Lightning Greaves because the ship is finally sailed on those cards.
R.I.P.
Gold is obviously the big one.
So those are still the same. Species Revelation finally coming in.
So, poor Gruul. Where's all that hot Gruul action?
Yeah, I don't know if Scar Guildmage is going to be super good.
Neither do I, but I want to give it a shot.
Yeah. So, Ralzeric for Hypersonic Dragon, Blood Baron for Mortify, Gerard's Verdict for Orzhov Charm. I think Orzhov Charm was kind of a cute experiment that kind of has run its course.
We talked about it last week. I think it still does stuff, but we want to go a little bit more discard.
Turn and Burn for an Invisit Draco Genius.
That is a new this week update. Want to get Turn and Burn in there, and who would have thought Red-Blue is actually showing up with some cards we like for once in our lives.
I know.
Have to make a change.
I do like Invisit.
He's so slow.
He's really slow, though.
So slow.
He's slow and he's really hard to cast.
Yes.
So, he's tough. Catch and Release for Damia.
Yeah, man.
Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead.
Yeah. We're finally cutting the Rav bounce lands, and we're adding in the Mirage fetch lands, which is 5 cards, which leaves us with 5 empty spots. We want to give a bit of a nod to enemy color lands, and this was a conversation that has been going back and forth about, do you want the Apocalypse Pain lands? Do you want the Innistrad block enemy friendlies or check lands? I still don't know how the kids like to say it out there.
Yeah.
When I think check lands, I think like CZ. Czechoslovakian lands. Which is a lot funnier, I think, if we were to refer to them as the Czechoslovakian lands.
I mean, I always refer to those as buddy lands.
Which is probably
weird because they're the
dumbest of all the ways to say
But it's the enemy buddy lands also. Which
enemy buddies?
Weird. Like
city duels. That's
city
an interesting way to look at it. Enemy buddy lands. But the stupid thing is the buddy lands aren't buddies with each other. You can't go like Woodland Cemetery, and have that be good.
No.
Splitting hairs here. We don't care what we call them. They're coming into the cube. And at the bottom, we have the most ambitious of the land changes. We've got Phyrexian Tower finally making it in after we talked about it a lot during our lands episode a few weeks ago. Gaia's Cradle, don't call it a comeback. We'll see if it does what it did before. Cutting a lot of the LD from the black section means that Kildjordan Outpost is going to get another shot. And then finally, my favorite change out of this entire update, Dragon's Maze cards included. Let's give a shout out to Bazaar of Baghdad, getting it done.
That'll be an interesting one. I'm not convinced it'll go as well as you hope.
Yeah, nothing to lose.
No, certainly not.
So there you have it. That's that.
That's all of Dragon's Maze. If there were cards in Dragon's Maze that we didn't talk about,
or if you have strong feelings about any of the changes that we are proposing for our own cube,
feel free to drop us a line at any of the various places that we can get a hold of.
We just created a show email. So now we have a place that you can actually send emails to. And
if you still use emails.
Yeah. As much as we've gone to this social media, video, page, blitz style of technology, you can still... What's it called again? I don't remember the email address.
draftcube@gmail.com.
Draftcube@gmail.com. Send your inquiries, proposals, hate mail, love mail, middle-of-the-road mail.
Ambivalent mail.
Yeah, dick pics, because Eck checks it.
Yeah.
All signs point to there for any of your questions. You can reach us on Twitter quite regularly. I'm at Tristan Gregson. This guy, for some reason, is a young mecha on Twitter. Check out the blogspot, ecomon.blogspot.com. A lot of cool stuff up there these days, actually.
We've been trying to put up more stuff. If you're watching this on the video side and you would like to get the audio side, iTunes has us, MTGcast has us. The website will also have a download link. If you're on the audio side and you'd like to get in on the video side, 3:30 p.m. Pacific time on Wednesdays, we record live at twitch.tv/Ecomon.
This is a good time to segue into a question from the chat about Jay Boosh. Jay can't make our regularly scheduled recording time, so we're going to set up a special recording time for him. It's probably going to be on a weekend, probably on a Sunday. We'll do an episode with Jay Boosh from the A-Team, as you may know. So look for that. We're also trying to get a few other people on, friends, family members, cohorts, the like. We're going to try to do them in our normal recording time. That works for some people, doesn't work for others. But we've finally figured out a jury-rig shitty way to do that kind of recording style. So
we're very much MacGyvering things together.
But again, other than bringing people into Eck's bedroom, which is usually how he gets shit done, we will be bringing other guests that you may have heard of in the near future. So check that out. And last but not least, since we are still pre-sponsor stage, please donate, because we want to do more with this.
I ain't too proud to beg, and especially starting next week, May 1st, Cube comes back online. The Twitch channel will be, as much as I can, streaming Cube drafts.
This is a good opportunity to kind of berate you for all these opportunities that you didn't limited resource Cube stream this week.
I was busy.
Okay, every single day you were busy.
Yeah, I'm a busy man.
Well, I guess as long as you're a busy man, because the gentleman that runs those drafts was not a busy man, and he was running them like every day. And
Clearly.
I was like, oh man, I'm gonna check and see if X streaming that situation, but no dice.
So follow us on Twitch if you're on the video side. Subscribe on YouTube if you're on that.
Definitely check out
feed and iTunes.
Definitely check out the blog, because not only is there the Skeleton Cube list for people looking to get into Cube there, but we also have it on tappedout.net, so you can run your own mock everything.
Right. So if you wanted to put it is on tappedout.net.
We could run a whole mock draft with some mocky draft bots right here on the stream, and we could have people talk about it.
Yeah.
Everyone listening after the fact will not get much out of that.
No,
but we could do it anyway.
Yeah, I think that just about covers it.
That just about covers us. Check the donate at the bottom there. Please donate. We would love it if you would donate.
I think it's probably more this way. There you go.
You're just pointing at your dick now.
Ha ha ha. No.
Foiled again!
Yeah. So yeah, if you got a couple bucks that you'd like to throw our way, it would really help out for the cube drafting portion of the show. I have no problem.
And new equipment.
Yeah.
Wait till you get to hear the jury rig system that Eck has set up for us to be able to have guests on. It's not fun for us.
No.
Hopefully it's fine for you, but it's pretty balls.
It's fine. It's fine for viewers and fine for everyone listening.
Which is really what matters.
We suffer for you.
Really what you're going to be paying for. So, on the audio side, that's probably going to do us. We're a little ahead of schedule. We should just fire up a tap. Go to Tap Down. Let's fire one of those guys up.
Okay. Well, I think we should probably call it for the audio side, though.
Fuck it. If they want to quit listening, they can quit listening.